And last but not least, we have the stand-up comedy special, the latest stand-up comedy special of Aziz Ansari, available on Netflix, which is titled Right Now. Now, this was an interesting special from the way it was shot, that you can tell, and it stands out straight off the bat from the beginning. It's like a more intimate feel, a more like in your face kind of camera angle, and Aziz's lower energy compared to like his usual specials where he's like walking around, pacing, jumping, dancing and shit. He's like sitting on a stool for the most part, probably for the vast majority of the show. He's just like sitting on a stool. It kind of reminded me of like a Dave Chappelle style performance, if you will, like the Dave Chappelle that did in the Equanimity special, the like the second one when he did it in the smaller comedy club versus the theater, and it was like an intimate, pull the crowd in type of show. And he addressed straight off the bat the allegations that he had against him. Aziz got caught up in the whole like Me Too thing which was more of a date gone wrong in most popular opinion, and I agree with that sentiment just from what I heard from it. It's a girl that came out saying that she felt uncomfortable when she was with him, and she only did certain things that she did because she felt pressured to, because of his like stardom or something along those lines. It could be mixing up the details a bit, but basically he's a chick that he was on a date with. She wound up giving him head and didn't want to have sex. He said okay and sent her home in an Uber. She said that was in some way, shape, or form sexual harassment, and that she only gave him head because he was a big star and she felt that she had to because they had already gone out to dinner. Now, my personal opinion is that he did the right thing in that situation, in that he took a lady out to dinner, invited her back to his place. They started fooling around. She wanted to stop, and he did. And then he sent her home. That's the way that's supposed to progress, that situation. Being that she wanted to stop. If not, the way it was quote unquote supposed to progress is, they continue doing their thing, spend the night together, and then she leaves in the morning type of thing. But that didn't happen. She wanted to put a stop to it. He stopped, to his credit, and sent her home. Now, she didn't come out saying that he like forced her upon him or anything like that. So there's no allegations like that. It's not like some Harvey Weinstein type shit. Like, it wasn't anything rapey. It was like some sort of like presumed, I owe you this because you're a famous person and you took me out to dinner type of thing on her part. Which, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to put that on other people. Like, your assumptions based on what you think somebody else is imposing on you is not really real. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that you created in your head and imposed it on yourself. And then to go ahead and make something like that public, and I don't know if she did that intentionally or if it was just, because he's a celebrity, things became public. In this like Me Too climate where people are like losing their jobs and stuff like that, was just like a Ryan thing to do, I think. And more power to him, to Aziz, that he still apologized and still said on his comedy special, it's going to be seen and viewed by millions probably. He still apologized, still said that if this situation was able to make him realize that he has to be that much more sensitive to other folks around him and people that he dates, and that a friend of his said that he's looking back on his own like personal dates and the way he approaches women and stuff like that, that it's ultimately like a positive good thing. And I thought that was pretty decent and big of him to do. But let's definitely not lump him into the Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, drugging and raping women bucket. It's not the same thing. I like the theme of his hour, or a theme of his hour, was highlighting how important context is. And when you hear or read about a story, apply it to the context of the situation and the time. And he pointed out how, like, jokes that were done on shows like Park and Rec or The Office, or take your pick from shows from the 90s, 2000s, they were perfectly fine and funny at the time, but now would be considered, sexual harassment and shaming, and the writers would probably go to jail by 2019 social justice warrior standards, you know what I mean? And that's not fair either. Like, whitewashing history, like, who's that helping? Like things like Kevin Hart not hosting the Oscars after being asked to because of a tweet that he tweeted out a decade ago and apologized for, and then re-apologized for again, was, he was demonized for it. It's like, fuck you. At a certain point, it's like, if the apology isn't enough, and a sincere apology isn't enough, like, when do those folks stop? When your head is on a pitchfork, it's like, all right, relax yourself and go fuck yourself. So, like, that theme to the show. And one of my favorite parts of the show, which, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, is that he's, like, telling the audience about like, different news stories, and then he's like, he asks by, like, a round of applause how many people in the audience heard the story of a pizza delivery guy delivering a pizza, and the pizza, it was a pepperoni pizza, and the pepperonis were put into the shape of a swastika on the pizza, and the people wanted him to get fired, and other people said that it was like freedom of speech, like, type of thing, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, by a show of hands, who saw the story, and a bunch of people clapped, and then he picked out a specific person from the audience and singled him out, and he asked him, like, if he remembers, like, where he saw the story, and he's like, I'm not sure. And then Aziz tells him, because the New York Times reported it, and then the Washington Post reported it, but the Washington Post wound up redacting the story because they found out that the photo of the pizza with the pepperoni swastika on it was photoshopped, doctored photo. And they didn't know it at the time, so they redacted the story. So some people that saw the New York Times story thought, it was like this egregious thing. And the people that saw the Washington Post story realized that it was a fake story. And then the guy was like, oh yeah, maybe it was in the Washington Post then that I saw it. And then Aziz finishes it off with saying that he didn't see it because he made up the entire thing. Like, the entire pepperoni swastika pizza story was fake. Like, he just invented that for the show. And then pointed out how so many people, like, clapped saying that they did hear the story, and then this guy, like, doubled down on it, the one that he singled out. And it's just to, like, depict that sequence in that hour is like a microcosm of how we are as a society today, like, in being the type of society that prioritizes social media and reads headlines and doesn't look deeper into stories and follows trends more so than wanting to be individualistic, if that's a word, and picks teams, etc., etc., etc. And that's a really important concept to, like, hone in on. It was a really good special. You come out of it contemplating shit, and also, I laughed throughout the whole thing. Like, Aziz Ansari is a really good comic. He's been doing comedy I want to say upwards of 15 years. I think he said like 16 to 18 years, something like that. He's a bona fide pro, obviously. He sells out all around the world, you know what I mean? But I think he gets, like, a little, I don't know if it's resentment or hate, or maybe it's none of those things. Maybe it's just like honest opinion of like other comics that kind of think that he's like a bit gimmicky and maybe hacky even. But I think that what he did with this special shows that he's like way above all that. He's a bona fide pro, and I recommend that you guys check out Right Now. That's the title. I'm not telling you to check it out right now, this instant. Although you could, and you won't be disappointed. But check out Right Now, which is the latest comedy special released in 2019 by Aziz Ansari. And it is streaming on Netflix. And that's all I got for you folks. That's episode 131 of the Spun Today Podcast.